You know, shows have a tendency to fall under a certain amount of judgment and pressure when they only have a finite number of installments. Take Loki, for example, a highly anticipated MCU Disney Plus miniseries set for a concise 6 episodes. Now, personally speaking, I think it can be a really good idea for a series like this to keep it relatively minimal. Not because I don't want to see a bunch more of Loki, but because less can be more when it comes to projects like these. And at the end of the day, I'd rather be left yearning for more as opposed to feeling like I got more than enough too early on. However, the flip side to this is that the quantity of episodes puts the story in a position where it needs to move along at a certain pace while simultaneously not coming off as rushed. So does the second episode of Loki accomplish this feat? Let's dive into it. The opening scene takes us to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, 1985, during a Renaissance fair where a small unit of TVA agents tracks down a variant that turns out to be the hooded character from the end of episode 1, aka definitely the other Loki. We're treated to a slight bit of action where other Loki uses a very Scarlet Witch type of trick to mind control the leader of the team to start killing off everyone else before escaping through a TVA portal with the leader as a hostage. Cut over to the TVA bureau where our Loki is stuck at a desk being tested about a very interesting fact. Apparently, if a Nexus event branches past what's known as the Red Line, the TVA can no longer reset that event.
Gosh, I wonder if that's gonna happen anytime during the series.
Mobius gets Loki and a crew prepped for a mission to Oshkosh to investigate, and while doing so, there's a really cool moment where we get a chance to see a few different variations of Loki that the TVA have captured in the past. I feel like that's also a subtle hint that this particular Loki that they're chasing after is going to be quite a unique variation of its own. Perhaps in the female category? So they head back to 1985 to the tent where shit went down, and Loki proceeds to do his best to make it seem as though he's aware of what other Loki's intentions are, and says they're in a trap. But Mobius calls his bluff, and they dip out just before resetting the timeline. Cut over to Mobius in the office of the judge he likes to flirt with, and they have a discussion about how reckless he's being by bringing Loki along to find other Loki. She's like, let's talk about that mission you just botched. Just botched? Nothing happened. They showed up, Loki gave a mini monologue, and they dipped out. I know the mission wasn't a success, but what exactly did they expect to happen? Like, no one else even did anything. Shouldn't someone have done something? Why did they all need to go there? All these people have been doing is going places, resetting shit, and leaving. The main takeaway of the conversation here is that the judge lady agrees to let Mobius use Loki for one more mission because the timekeepers are starting to lose their shit over this other Loki situation. Side note, I love how alcohol and drink coasters are still a thing in the TVA. So then Mobius has Loki sit down to sift through some paperwork regarding the variant, but Loki decides to poke around some other paperwork instead, and comes across the file on Ragnarok, where Asgard and most of its people were wiped out. This leads Loki to theorize that other Loki could very well be hiding in the midst of these events, as anything they do there wouldn't matter since the catastrophic disaster that's about to follow will wipe out anything they've done. To prove his point, the duo head in the past to Pompeii right before the volcano erupts, and Loki has a hell of a good time breaking the news to the poor souls about to be annihilated. Just as Loki suspected, Mobius detects no variant energy at the sighting, leading him to start to accept Loki's theory. The two head back to the bureau and have a chat about each of their beliefs on life, which was some pretty deep shit, and also talk more about this Loki logic, which eventually works up Mobius to take a team to Haven Hills, Alabama, 2050 during a hurricane where they believe other Loki is hiding out at. And they're right. Shortly after they arrive, other Loki is shown to be watching them through surveillance footage and sets a timer for 20 minutes. Next, we see our Loki and his favorite TVA agent come across a man claiming to be shopping, but is merely under other Loki's control. That control is then passed on to the TVA agent, so the two Lokis can speak to one another face to face. Well, kind of. Other Loki switches through a few other people to buy some time while they place a large number of those reset charges, but not to go off in one place. Just before they explode, they each head through time doors to unknown locations. But what we do know is that wherever they went, they continued on to create a plethora of Nexus events. Woo! Multiverse, here we come! But that's not the only craziness we get towards the end here. Just when you thought the episode was gonna leave us hanging with who exactly other Loki is, they step out and reveal themselves to be... female Loki?
Or is it actually Enchantress? That's a whole nother theory. We'll save that for like a different video.
She heads through a time door to escape, and our Loki hesitantly follows through after her. Then the episode ends. There's the breakdown of Episode 2, The Variant. Another fun to watch, decent installment, but just like the first episode, it doesn't give you a heck of a lot to chew on. The banter between Loki and Mobius is still 100% the most enjoyable element of the show for me, but as great as their banter is, it rightfully shouldn't be the most enjoyable element of the show for me. I'm truly not trying to ask for too much too early, but we're talking about a 6-episode series here, and this simply felt like an extension of the first episode as opposed to being a substantial continuation in the show. The big reveal of the other Loki being the female iteration of the character was interesting, though it didn't leave me with my jaw hitting the floor like I think the moment was aiming for. I can't say that I know all too much about female Loki from the comics other than she exists, so I don't necessarily have many expectations of what to anticipate from her other than she's still Loki, so foundations of that character should still shine through. All I really hope is that they don't go down the route of, hey, look at how the female Loki is better than the male Loki in every single way possible without any effort whatsoever, and my godness, isn't the male Loki just such a joke? Just keep them evenly balanced, please. Make it a fun, back and forth situation where they both keep one-upping each other and maybe even end up with some mutual respect of the fact that they both equally embody what defines the god of mischief. The whole scenario also gave me heavy vibes of an extremely similar predicament from a wonderful British show known as Doctor Who. In that show, there's an alien species known as the Time Lords, which are beings that have the ability to regenerate every cell in their body when they're on the verge of death, which in turn changes their appearance, voice, personality, etc. One of the main antagonists and Time Lords of the series is called the Master, who recently was part of a special where 2 different versions of this character, one male, one female, met face to face and of course weren't on the same page as much as you would expect to be with yourself. It makes me wonder if this is on the verge of taking any sort of similar course, where we may see both Lokis unwillingly work together until they each turn on each other for their own personal gain. I can't say for sure because it's difficult to tell what our Loki's actual intentions are. On one hand, he seems to have glimpses of genuine good and redemption shining through, yet on the other, he very quickly and sporadically defaults back to his devious ways. It's what makes his emotional moments nowhere near as impactful as they should be. The only reason they still hit is because Tom Hiddleston is a hell of an actor, but in conjunction with the flow and tone of the episode, those moments almost feel shoehorned in. Like when he sees the report of the destruction of Asgard, Loki gets all choked up and teary-eyed, but the effect of that is completely thrown to the wind when the very next scene he acts like he couldn't care less when Mobius gives his condolences. I don't know, a part of me just feels like the show itself isn't sure of what to do with the character yet, so they just decided to make him a bit of everything, or maybe, to be fair, that's just the character himself coming into his own and trying to discover who he really is. Not sure if that's giving the writers too much credit or not. The one thing I am very pleased with is the fact that female Loki's timeline bombing bonanza seems to have jump-started the reignition of the multiverse, and for that, she's already got a positive check in my book. Another thing I wanted to touch on was the TVA agent that was found damn near losing her mind and confessed that she revealed the location of the timekeepers and how to find them. Now this is an odd curveball because when our Loki proposes to female Loki that they make a pact to take over the TVA, she declines, claiming she has no desire to do that. So, is her intent to wipe out the TVA and the Timekeepers instead? Perhaps she's aware of the potential possibility of the multiverse and wants to let it blossom so she can conquer not just one Asgard, but infinite Asgards? Then there's one other looming issue I have, even though I really enjoyed this specific part. If there isn't currently a multiverse in only one sacred timeline, then how in the absolute fuck are there any different variations of Loki? Now, a female one I can manage to understand and give the benefit of the doubt. The guy can change his appearance into anything he wants. Though this doesn't appear to be a he disguising himself as a she, it just seems like a she, which further confuses me. But there was also one they showed that was like a fucking monster? How? Was there some sort of Asgardian experiment gone wrong that did that to him, which in turn caused him to be a variant? I mean, Mobius describes them as if they're all slightly different from one another, including their powers, which again, is cool, but that totally sounds like there's already a multiverse then. I just hope that the next episode, being the halfway point, further moves things forward and brings at least some clarity to what's going on here and what these Loki's intentions are. But as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode and how it left you feeling. What do you think about the reveal of female Loki? Are you excited? Do you love the idea? Do you hate it? Are you indifferent about it? What do you think's on the other side of that time door that her and our Loki went through? How much multiversal madness are we going to get before we get in the multiverse of madness? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Like this video if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you can keep up with the breakdowns of future episodes, and I'll catch you at the next review.